Welcome to Two Baptists and That Amish Chick, a podcast brought to you by the Butterchurn Girls. I'm Leslie.
And I'm Bethany.
And I'm Berlin. Join us for candid conversations about organized religion, the good, the bad, the ugly, and how we broke free from it while holding on to our faith in God.
In these candid conversations, you can expect to laugh, to relate, occasionally cry, and definitely hear a few cuss words.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and follow at the Butterchurn Girls on all socials. Now for this week's episode.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Last episode, we talked about the word lost, what it means to be lost, what it really means, what religion talks about it meaning, all of those things. So this is kind of a part 2 to it, but we're going to talk about things a little bit differently. So they go together. Kind of thing. You don't necessarily have to listen to the last one first, but it may have some context that brings to this one as well. Yeah. So we talked about lost and the language of that person is lost, right? That you hear a lot in religion. This time we want to talk a lot to things like, what does it mean to say I lost someone? We hear that a lot.
Like when they die.
Like when they die. Yeah. When someone has passed away, like, oh, I lost my mom. I lost this person. I lost it. But we have had this conversation on multiple different levels about, are they actually lost?
Mm-hmm.
Did we lose them?
Yeah.
What happened there? So
yeah,
let's talk about it.
Yeah. And I mean, I have my personal story. Like my parents both passed away. And so like my dad passed away last year. My mom passed away in 2017. If I have my years correct. And so I was actually, was it you when we were all in California? Or Vegas.
Yeah, we were in Vegas. Yeah.
Talking about like somehow the conversation came up about me missing my mom, and like
I think it was something about you working on recipes and stuff in your cookbook, and you were like, I've actually felt closer to my mom and like I understood her more, and like I almost like there was more relationship now that she's not physically a living human on earth.
Yeah. And then you made a comment, or Dub made a comment.
I don't remember.
Anyway. It was late.
It was late.
It was late.
It was like 1 a.m.
Yeah. And like it shifted my whole perspective, because I don't know about you, but I was taught that when somebody dies, you've lost them. Like they're dead. Like you don't see them, obviously don't see them anymore. You don't even communicate with them anymore. All of that. And that always felt so final. Like if somebody in my family dies, I will never see them again. It felt like that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, well, maybe when you go to heaven, then like you'll see them again, right? But in the meantime, there's no way to feel connected to them anymore. And I don't think that's true anymore, because I've had a very different experience for when my mom died. Mm-hmm. Because when she died, like I left the Amish when she was still alive here physically on earth, and she was very heartbroken. Like our relationship changed. I loved my mom. It was really hard to see her go through that. And then she passed away or transitioned when after I had already left for a few years. And like I really didn't get to have a relationship much with her after I left. And so it really felt like we weren't on the best of terms when she died. And it really was hard for me, because I felt the guilty, the feeling of like I could feel guilty, like it's my fault that she died, right? Because she got sick after I left. And it was almost like she just kind of gave up on life. Actually, she did just give up on life. That's what happened.
Let's also note, though, you were the youngest, and so there's a lot of changes that happen in women when their last child even just turns 18. Right. So like, depending on where they are holding their identity. So like,
and my mom's identity was very much as kids. And like, I was kind of her pride and joy. And like, I was the youngest, and, being the youngest, you just have a different relationship with your mom or your parents. And it's almost more of a, like, they don't want to let you go because you're the last one. Mm-hmm. And
especially if that's where they hold their identity, is in motherhood and in like raising you.
Yeah.
When that job's over, what's left? Yeah. Like that happens to a lot of women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so like, I just kind of jumped in and started sharing the story.
No, it's perfect.
But like, so when she died, I had all these feelings of like, man, Bethany, like you left your mom hanging, like what, you could have done more for her. Like you could have, but I was going through my own journey. Like I was detoxing a lot of things I was taught that weren't true. And I was trying to find out who the heck Bethany is. And then my mom got sick, and it was like so much going on in those first few years of me leaving the Amish. And I just didn't have capacity to hold space for her and myself at the same time. I had to pick, and it was one of the hardest decisions I ever made. So when she died, I was like, I lost her. Like, she's dead. But the thing that happened when she died, I instantly felt closer to her than I ever felt when she was physically present. Like, it was like she finally understood why I did what I did, and she was proud of me.
Because she knows the truth that you know now.
Yeah.
And more. She knows more truth than you hold.
And it was like,
I just think that's so, it changes the perspective.
It is. And like at her funeral and even afterwards, I could feel her like being proud of me and cheering me on. Like, Bethany, the others don't understand why you did what you did, but keep going, because now I know. And like, it was almost like, I'm sorry that I didn't understand, but I understand now.
Wow.
And like,
that's so cool.
I want you to keep going. Like, you're like blazing a trail for our family. And it was like, to her, in an instant, it felt like to her, the past didn't even matter. Like, she just didn't care anymore. Like, it just doesn't matter, Bethany. Like, I don't care. Like, that happened, but it has absolutely nothing to do with who you are and where you're going. And like, it should not. And so to feel that, I was like, holy crap, I feel closer to my mom now. And like, we just understand each other better than when she was alive. Like, that just sounds crazy. I know that sounds like, what the heck are you talking about? Especially if you've been raised in like religion, like I was. But then we were talking that night in Vegas a couple months ago, or whenever that was. And I think you said, Berlin, you're like, well, did you actually lose her? Or did she just transition? And she never died, really. She just transitioned. Because your spirit will never die. Like, it's eternal, it's living, like it doesn't die. And
that's
so
who you are.
And that's
your
who,
spirit. You're not a body,
right?
You're a spirit.
Unless you decide to agree with death and like, you can be dead and still alive. You know what I
think
mean?
there's more dead people walking around than,
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know where exactly to
Leslie
take
dead people.
Yeah. But like, what am I? Bleh. So like, that whole thing of, when you get born again and you like decide, okay, Jesus is real and I want to have a relationship with him, you literally decide to partner with life. And so you can't die. You literally cannot die. You just transition. This right here, this body right here, is just a house for you to stay in. And your house might give out, but you don't. Like,
and we're promised a new house anyway.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We're promised a new body in the word. If you look at it, we're promised a new body. We're promised a new earth too.
Right.
Oh, we won't go there.
But the thing is like, yes, I was gonna go
different episode.
Yeah. But like, even if you decide to like not be like, okay, I don't believe Jesus is real and I'm not going to do that, and like, let's say you die that way, you might have partnered with death, which is fine, but death doesn't have any power anymore. Like, Jesus literally destroyed that system. And so like,
that's why he rose from the dead. He conquered death.
Even people
conquered death.
People dead who die and don't believe in Jesus. I'm like,
people who dead, she said.
Yeah. Who don't,
people whose hearts stop beating and brains stop functioning.
Yes, exactly.
At the same time.
That. Even though, this is my belief, even though they like die physically and let's say they decided never to partner with life and they die, they might go to the realm of the dead, whatever that is.
The realm of those who've transitioned.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to transition.
Exactly. Yeah, everyone's going to transition. So they've just transitioned to a different place. They can still decide to be like, oh, I believe in Jesus, and be saved after they're dead.
I believe that too. Yeah.
And I know that sounds like, oh my gosh, but if you look at like, okay, so this goes back to like the books that weren't put in the Bible, the things that were written that were never put in there, that are the truth of like the people who were alive when Jesus was alive. And they talk about what happened when Jesus went down and conquered death and he destroyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's people who still go to the realm of the dead and rescue people after they're dead. There's people now living today who do that, and they believe in Jesus, and Jesus actually takes them on a rescue mission. Like, hey, we're going to go get some people out of the really sucky situation. They died not knowing the truth, but we're going to go save them.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jesus destroyed death. So death really doesn't have any hold on you unless you believe it.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason that, and then even then it doesn't really have any power. It's only taking your power. It's a parasite that I think that just like latches onto you and sucks the life out of you until you decide to not believe in it.
You break
anymore.
agreement, and then it can't do it anymore.
Anyway, so that's my like law. Like my mom, I don't believe my mom's lost. Like I lost her when she died. She's more alive to me now than she was when she was physically alive.
But isn't that the difference? If you go back and listen to the previous episode, that's the difference of being in the religious Amish culture and knowing the complete truth now. Because there's not a piece of truth that she does not know.
Yes, she knows everything.
She knows more than we do,
Yeah.
you know, which is cool.
Yeah.
And like, I think you feel so much closer to her because she is in your cloud of witnesses. She is cheering you on. She's like, hey, let's keep going. Right? Like she's still very much present and an active part in what you're doing.
Yeah. So on that, I agree. And so on that note, what is the cloud of witnesses? Like that might sound like a very churchy term for some of you guys. Like, what are you talking about here?
It's funny too, because the cloud of witnesses, it wasn't ever like a big conversation. I'd heard people say the cloud of witnesses. I heard scriptures talk about it as a kid, right? In the faith I was raised in. I just like thought it was like the deacons of heaven. Like, you're like, it's all the Bible characters that were like this. David's good. Paul's good. He's good. Like, they're the deacons of heaven.
They're
like,
the deacons of heaven. How Baptist. Oh
and
my
I had
God.
never heard that you actually thought about that.
They're the ones that do the fish fry.
They do. The fish fry. That's in the cell. There's no fish fries up there.
Oh
They're
yeah,
the
we
ones
do the fish fry.
that count the offering.
Which I missed
sure.
that, and I'm a little mad. I would have gone home for that. Anyway, that's not the point.
But like they were like the deacons of heaven. Now I know
Oh my God.
that the cloud of witnesses are the people who have transitioned from their spirit living in a body on the earth to being in heaven. Like their body now is in the ground, spreading water, sprinkle whatever they decided to do with it, right? And now they are in heaven, right? The heavenly realm, we'll call it that.
Yeah.
They're in the heavenly realm, and
They're in another dimension.
yeah. And we get to have conversations with them. We get to connect with them because they are spirits, and we are made of spirit. And this is something that's like interesting, because I would have been like years ago, I've been like, don't talk to the dead, that's demonic, that's blah, blah, which I think there are ways that you can try and connect with things in a way that isn't like the way of the light, the way of God.
I think that's the
intention.
Well, the intention and who you go through.
Yes.
Because you can choose to partner with Holy Spirit and be like, hey, I know everybody is connected in the spirit. And so Holy Spirit, I want to like experience this person through you, or like Jesus, you know, like it depends who you decide to partner with to like see the cloud of witnesses or talk to them or whatever. And you can ask like Holy Spirit or Jesus, be like, hey, I really want to have a different experience with my mom or whatever. And you might have a dream where you literally see her and encounter her. And I know that's happened to people. It's happened to me.
Whole conversations about exactly what they need.
Like my mom has been in so many dreams, and I truly believe that, like, because I've asked Jesus like at night before I go to bed, I'm like, hey, I would love to like see my mom tonight, and I'll have a dream about her, and like we'll do things together, and she's in my dream.
That's cool.
And I believe that it's like me, and because when you're asleep, I just totally hijacked this.
That's fine.
Okay, I'll give it back to you.
It's a Bethany episode.
But like when I'm asleep, my spirit can actually then do, like when you're awake, your conscious mind kind of limits you because everything controls things. It controls things, and it kind of limits you. When you're asleep, your spirit takes over, right? And so
you can do what it wants.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think that's cool, and continue.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I hadn't had experiences with the cloud of witnesses until we quote unquote lost a baby, right? Until it had a miscarriage. And that's what's interesting. I even hate the word miscarriage. I heard someone call it's on TikTok the other day, pregnancy loss. Because even the word miscarriage makes it sound like it's
but there you got the word loss. So
lost. Yeah. But lost a baby and stuff too. And so there's a lot of dynamics to like my thoughts are like spinning as Bethany's talking, because this is like what my experience has been with loss. I haven't like quote unquote lost or had someone die who's really, really close to me, like, you know, Bethany has, outside of that experience, which is very close to you. It's inside of you, right?
Right.
And so that was that experience. Like, first of all, I have gone and people are like, you know, as a little girl, yeah, I've had experiences with her. She's in the cloud of witnesses. I've talked to her. I've had conversations with her. I'll talk to God and be like, hey, tell her this. Sometimes I'll talk to her with things. And so it's interesting to get the understanding of that experience of this, the fact that you are a spiritual being. I heard someone actually explain this, and I thought it was just interesting. I don't know if it's accurate. I don't know if we'll know it's accurate until we get right there with God to talk with him,
Right.
literally face to face or not. But I heard someone explain even the idea of losing a pregnancy, right? Losing that baby is the fact that there's this separation between our spirit and our body. Two humans can create a physical body. They did not create that spirit. So that spirit,
it's co-creation.
So that spirit, then God goes, hey, like I said, I'm not saying this is for sure, but I thought this was very interesting. It was kind of comforting and like intriguing to me. So two people create a body, and then God's like, looks at a spirit and goes, hey, do you want to go down and experience earth and experience all the emotions, relationships, all the things that you can't experience in this realm, this heavenly realm, in this way? Do you want to go and experience it? And so the spirit then goes, yeah, I want to come down, and is inside the body. Now, sometimes that body is not able to survive to hold on to that spirit. So you have not lost that person. There is a physical body, tissue, whatever you want to call it. I hate using the word fetus because it's going, but like it's a body, a physical body that is there, that yes, it did not survive, but that spirit did not die. That spirit is not lost. That spirit, first of all, has been in heaven and down in earth, like inside of me.
It's got a level of clarity that no one, you know.
Yes, like it hasn't been tainted by our like the world tainted by the world, but like it hasn't had its spiritual beingness, and no one's a spiritual being like trained out of it, right? And so that was interesting to me when I heard that analogy of like that's of the spirit being like, hey, do you want to come down? Like, do you want to go experience this? And like maybe it's even God being like, hey, how long do you want to go for? And it's like 12 weeks sounds good. Like give me a couple months and I'll be back. Okay, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what happens, right? Maybe the spirit's knowing. And I don't know that's accurate, but that those thoughts are just things that have been interesting for me based off of my own experiences.
And those are conversations that we are so free to have with God, right? Like God's not scared of those questions.
Right.
He's not intimidated of the questions of finding things that are in different practices that aren't necessarily Christian, which I'm not a huge fan of that word. That's an episode on its own. But like, God's not scared of those questions because God is so solid and certain in who he is, what he's created, and how he operates, that he's going to give you an answer, but it's an answer that you're ready to receive, because he can't just unload everything on us, right? Like we're most of the time we're not prepared and ready for that, right? And so you know, God's not afraid of big questions. He's not afraid of, even like in that situation, like he's not afraid of anger, or he's not afraid to like to be with you while you experience your real personal emotions, right? Like God created it. He's got emotions too. And so, and he's not scared of that.
And even the thing, like, that's a good point. And you made me think about this. Like, you know, people are like, oh, especially religious people. And I used to be one of these people too, that like, you can't talk to the dead. Like, that's a really tricky, like, you're gonna, you know, you're basically,
I'm talking demonic. So they would say,
that's like demonic or whatever.
You're talking to demons. You're not actually talking to people is what I was told.
This is the thing though. You can talk to the dead. And people do it all the time. However, the system of darkness, as I like to call it, because it doesn't have a king anymore, he got kicked off when Jesus basically annihilated him, right?
Unemployed cherub.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, he's an unemployed cherub seeking for employment.
Not Jesus.
No,
Satan.
we're talking about Satan and like the demonic.
Let's actually
like
clarify.
Yeah, like that's probably good. Like the dark side, right? Like demonic, Satan. Like because there's a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
There is a dark and the light side of the spiritual realm, and so like the dark side's already been defeated. People just engage with it because they don't know anything else. And this is the thing, talking to the dead, anything that the system of darkness tries to do, it cannot create. It's never been able to create. Okay. Because it was created by God first.
It's just a
like,
counterfeit.
Like Lucifer was an angel before he was a demon, right? Like God literally created him and he had free choice and he decided to do what he wanted to, right? Okay, his decisions had a consequence, just like everybody's decisions have a consequence, whether good or bad. Consequences can be a good thing. Like you decide to work out and eat healthy and you lose 10 pounds. That's a great consequence, right? So what I'm saying is like talking to the dead, there is truth in that because the system of darkness cannot create. It just takes what the kingdom of light has made and perverts it or twists it. And so in everything, psychic readings, talking to the dead, all of these things that so many Christians are so scared of,
all those things,
they're literally taking a truth. They don't know it, right? They're operating in a portion of truth. They're just engaging with the dark side instead of the light side. And that's why it's twisted. Yeah. There's literally like the darkness didn't create that. It just took the cloud of witnesses and us being able to actually communicate spirit to spirit with people who weren't here anymore and just twisted it. Like that's the only thing that happened. And so like, we literally don't have to be scared about talking to the dead. All I ask God is like, okay, what part of that is true that you created? And what does it look like to operate in the kingdom of light? And that changes everything.
Everything that exists that we see in the worlds that people of faith in God would consider to be evil, right? Would be witchcraft, voodoo, all that stuff, New Age, all the things, right? There's another version of that that's available.
Yes.
And there's an opposite version. So if you're like, hey, Leslie's gonna love this one, like, hey, they're using healing crystals. Have you ever noticed how there was breastplates that they put crystals on? Maybe God did that strategically.
But the church loves a birthstone.
Yeah,
it's true.
They don't like crystals, but gemstones are okay.
Or a diamond.
They'll put a diamond on a hand. I actually texted them this the other day because I was sitting there on my couch and it like smacked me. Because I do a little bit of the gemstones in my company. I always call them gemstones for the religious folks.
Yeah.
But no, I was like, the church hates them, but they are in an absolute chokehold about getting diamonds on hands. So,
and that's
really,
a stone.
It's a gemstone. A diamond is a gemstone.
Dang, talk about the power that holds too. They use that as a tool to hold power in the church.
And to hold you, bondage. To bind you.
Oh,
anyway.
We find new episodes.
That episode's coming.
Yeah.
Who's really being held by what?
Right.
The pot can't call the kettle black here because it's pretty sure it's just opposite sides of the same thing.
It is. And so I do feel like a lot of those things that the church considers evil, they've actually apprehended a portion of power, but they have no idea how to operate in authority.
Yeah.
Right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
I got it mixed up one time. I was like, I got it mixed up and you're like, I don't think that's right.
Explain the difference between those two so people know what we're talking about.
Shoot. So
I can give an analogy if you want.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I've heard that there is a difference between power and authority is if I'm sitting there as a 5'5" woman and a man tries to grab a hold of me, right? And or a man comes up and is like, you're going to sit down. And he pushes me down the chair and it's a big 6'5" dude. He pushes me down. He has taken power over me because I physically can't fight against him. And now if a police officer walks up to me and goes, ma'am, I need you to sit down. He has authority. Right. Obviously in that moment he doesn't start, but like, ma'am, I'm gonna need you to get out of the car. Man, like he has authority, right?
He has power plus authority because he has a whole system that he's operating with that's backing him up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so like we all have power, right? We all are powerful beings. But do we have authority? Because the system of darkness doesn't have authority. The kingdom of light has authority because authority comes from
God.
light itself,
Yeah.
like
Right.
from Jesus. That's where
Right.
we get our authority.
We were given
Yeah.
dominion over earth. So
Yeah.
we have.
So Jesus literally took the authority away from the devil and said, hey, you don't have it anymore. You never
give
had
it
it in
back.
the beginning. He gave it back to the sons of men, which is us, right? It's like, hey, here's your authority back. If you partner with me, like if you decide to live the way you were designed to live, you have all of heaven backing you. You have all the angels, which is the army. By the way, you're not the army of God. The angels
Come
are,
on.
right? That you have thousands of soldiers backing you up every single time you walk into a room, every single time you go anywhere. You have the authority of heaven backing you up, and like you have power plus authority unseats a power every single time.
Yeah, it's true.
And I just think that's the coolest thing. Like when I walk into the room, listen, I have my angels with me, right? Everybody has their own angels who are with them, but I have the whole.
You have your personal entourage,
yes,
but then you've got the backup security,
which is like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and like, and you have them at your command to help you advance the kingdom, not to manipulate. They will never respond to manipulation or abuse. But when you are in full alignment with the kingdom and with your identity and what you're supposed to do, they have to back you up, and they want to back you up because they're like, hey, look, there's a child of God who's operating fully in alignment with their purpose and their power and their identity. All of heaven is like, woof, like, we want to help you. How can we help you? Right? Which is the coolest thing, because when you're aware of that, you activate it. They're always there, but you just might not be aware of it, right? We just might not be aware of what we actually have on our backs.
100%.
And
I think we're also just taught about like, and I don't know, this is kind of the understanding I got. I don't know that I was ever actually taught about angels growing up, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I know we're taking a rabbit trail here. I'll bring it back here in a minute, but like I never learned about like, hey, you do have angels assigned to you. But yet I was seeing them from a very young age. She would stand in my bedroom door at night when I was scared. And I always thought it was my mom. I think I talked about this. I can't remember.
In another episode,
what are you doing, Mom? And it was my angel the whole time. Like my mom is not tall and she is not blonde. And this was like a super tall blonde, like, anyway. I was like, what are you doing, Mom? But like we were never taught that. And it was almost like the angels are for Jesus and for God, but not for us. And you'll see a lot of different teachings on angels from a lot of reputable people.
I thought there was like 3 left, because like that's all they talk about in the Bible. Like there's 3.
Michael, Gabriel, and
I don't know how many there is, but like there was a handful of them, and then there were some that went up and down
so
stairs.
The Legion,
or something.
once Jesus conquered everything, the Legion was like, we're not needed.
We're not like I thought most of them just must have became demons. Like most of them left, and they were like, well, there's 5 of them left.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
Yeah, I think we have we're taught such a limited view on like angels and the cloud of witnesses, going back to like talking to people who have transitioned, like talking to dead people, I think is like, you can talk to dead people who have actually like not decided to, who are like in the realm of the dead, whatever, right? Who like who decided not to partner with life before they died, right? Who decided not to partner with Jesus, and they just, because of their decision, they went to a different place.
So the way that would probably
So
the way they'll probably describe, because I think some people will be confused, like, because we have our language we use. So people who died and didn't decide to follow Jesus, and that most would say we're in hell.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, okay. Basically, like that's what I was taught. Though you can talk to those people, and they've chosen to partner with death, so that's the realm they go to. Like whatever you partner with is where you're gonna go. Like it's kind of like so the people who partnered with life before they died, they never actually died, they just transitioned. So you can talk. So you talking to the cloud of witnesses. So you talking to the cloud of witnesses, you're not talking to dead people, you're talking to people who are alive. They're more alive than we are. Yeah. So like, we're not actually, that's taking the system of darkness and turning it on its head. Like, we're actually meant to talk to other people who are alive. They're just not alive physically. They're still alive spiritually, right?
Yeah.
And we can talk to their spirit, and like they show up in rooms, they show up with you, like they're cheering you on, like go, like do the things we weren't able to do, right? Like keep doing this or whatever. Like they're cheering, they're like the cheering squad of heaven who like cheer you on, because they can't operate anymore on earth because they don't have a physical body. Your physical body gives you the right to be on earth. And so when you don't have your physical body, you can't actually, like, you have to have a physical body in order to be on the earth and physically present. That's why your body is so important. Take care of it, right? Like, anyway.
So I do want to tell this because, and I know we're getting close on time, but I do want to tell this story because it's absolutely wild. And every time, like the first time it happened, okay, let me start with this. I've actually had encounters with people who have passed, and this is something that I've never heard anybody else having this happen to, but I was at the person's funeral and I had an encounter with them in the throne room. Like,
can you break that down in layman's terms so people know what you're talking about?
So oh gosh, I don't know.
Like, what does encounter mean? What's a throne room?
So, but like, so you have, like, because we're spirit, we can actually visit heaven. Like the veil was torn, so there's not a barrier, right? So we can actually go and encounter some of these things before we transition, right? And so encountering it is just experiencing it, right? And so I was at a funeral for a classmate of mine that passed away, and at his funeral, it was, I'll probably cry. I'll try not to, but at his funeral, the former vice principal of our high school and a former like leader of the church that I grew up at, that he and I both went to, he and I were two of like the main ones in our age group that went to this church. And so we literally did everything together. Like I saw him literally, you're in a small town, West Texas town, you see everybody 7 days a week, right? Like you see everybody. But every time they got up to speak, they talked about, we know he had a rough life, and we know he didn't always make the best decisions. And we know he, like, they harped on it over and over and over. And then they got up there and went, you know, like his parents told us that he was baptized on such and such date, and I just needed to know. And they went and found his baptism card where he like signed his agreement that he was like giving his life to the Lord or whatever.
As if you have to sign an agreement. Like,
yep, an organized religion, lovely. They have a card with my name on it too, but let me tell you, that card means jack. Okay, so I was said, you're like, I renounced that.
I did. After I got Holy Spirit, I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to get baptized again.
Listen,
because
I've thought that
that
several
one
times.
wasn't the like that first
that was
baptism.
my trial
was
run.
not Jesus.
It's fine. No, but sitting there, I just went to the feet of God and I said, what is going on? And I was like so heartbroken. Like that was the most heartbreaking thing. Like, one, I was angry just because I was like, how dare you speak about him that way when he can't even, like, he's not here to defend himself. And I was sitting there, I was just like beside myself. Like, I wasn't hysterical, but I was so mad. And I was like, God, just tell me that he's okay. Like, because this has to hurt even now. Like, this has to hurt. And like, I'm just like kind of face down, like in the spirit, right? Like in the throne room. That's how you kind of travel.
You like in your imagination, this was happening, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so I was just like, God, I just need to know that he's okay. And I heard my friend's voice. He's like, hey, and he's standing there next to God, just kind of like hanging out in his goofy way that he always did. And I lost it. I was like, I know he's okay. And so like it happened. That was the first time it happened.
And he came to you. You said God was there.
Yeah.
So you know it wasn't like I'm talking to him through the devil or something, right?
Yeah.
And he was there with God
because
so
I had no grid for what was happening. And so like, even if something is weird that you've never heard somebody else experience, like, hey, like, it's okay. Talk to God about it, right? First and foremost. And because I was already talking to God and he showed up, he's like, hey, like I knew, I was like, this is okay. Right. And it's actually happened a couple times. I was actually, okay, I'll say this. I was like, I don't know who's listening. So just heads up, I might be talking about some of your family. It's my family too. So, but I was at my cousin's funeral, and again, I was like, God, this is such a different, it was in the same church, but both of these funerals happened in the same church. And I was like, God, this is so different. Like, it is so different. I was like, this one feels like an actual celebration of life, not a, he missed it.
Isn't that what I've been to the funerals I have been to, even if they were a person that followed the exact faith that all the people I thought they should.
Why are they
The
downtrodden?
Christian ones are always so much sadder than like the ones that were people that weren't like,
because they're so
practicing a
unaware, of like eternal life, and like the person didn't actually die. Because a lot of Christians that get born again or saved, but they still agree with death. So they've got a little bit of a multi-agreement going on there.
So yeah, you were saying it felt different.
It felt completely different. And again, I was kind of just like, God, this feels so different. And I heard my cousin, like, I heard running, and I like, you know, it's in your imagination. That's kind of how you see a lot of these things, right? I heard my cousin run up, he went, this is great. And he turned around and he took off, like, but it was like, he was like living in his fullness, and like the illness that had taken a lot of his like physical health from him for several years was completely gone. He was young. He was like running around, just like complete
Look
joy.
what I can do.
Literally. And so like, I've had these experiences at funerals, and it was wild, and I had no grid. And I finally, like, I was having a conversation with somebody, and I was like, I gotta ask this, like, you know, just kind of,
is this normal?
Hey, like, not even is this normal, but like, have you ever had anything like this? And they're like, no, but maybe that's like one of those things that you experience at funerals. Like, you encounter the people.
Leslie's like going to random funerals to meet new friends.
Just, just adding to my cloud of witnesses, right? Just cherry picking. No, I'm joking. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But something I think is interesting. If you're a person that you're like, I've always been opposed to this, but now I'm interested, I'm more open. Like, I don't think God or even the people in Cloud of Witnesses are going to come at you in a way that is scary or anything. Because I know it can be, even my first, like when I was first learned about angels and counting those, I was like, this freaks me out. Like, am I going to turn around?
Hilarious. Because you did that whole experience like online. She would like Facebook Live it, and I watched the whole thing.
But I was still afraid that I was gonna like get up to go pee in the middle of the night and turn around, there's gonna be an angel there. It was just gonna scare the absolute shit out of me. Like, I was gonna think someone was gonna in my house, right? But so like that, the Cloud of Witnesses and God are not gonna come at you in a way that is scary or overwhelming. Like, I did not think about this before we started talking, but as we've been talking, I thought of it. My very first experience with having communication with the dead was actually when my great aunt died. So my great aunt, she was like the oldest of like 13 kids, right? My grandma's the youngest. And so my great aunt had Alzheimer's, moved in with my grandma. She didn't know her that well, because Bethany probably gets this. You probably don't know your oldest sibling that well.
No, I don't.
Because there's such an age gap. And so my grandma was concerned about, was she saved? Is she in heaven? Where is she? Like, after she passed away. And I remember my grandma had handwritten up what she wanted said at the funeral. And so my aunt was typing it up for her, right? I remember my aunt typing it up and getting out a brand new package of paper and putting it in the printer. She printed out what my grandma had written, and right over, you know how words will stack if something's printed on top of each other?
Yeah.
So the words were stacked. And one thing that my great aunt would always say is she'd walk in the door and she'd go, hello, how are you? I'm fine. And right over top of the words in this thing that my grandma had written out to like honor her, it said, hello, how are you? I am fine. And I think I just like remember that as we were talking, we're like, that was the dead speaking to us. That's the Cloud of Witnesses. And we're like, hey, how are you? I'm fine. Like, just in the same way she would greet you all the time.
And your grandma didn't type that. Like, it just was on the paper.
No, my aunt,
or your aunt,
it was layered.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the very beginning intro was there, but right over top of it was written, hello, how are you?
So the overtext was hi, hello,
yeah, so it's like if you wrote one word and literally printed right on top of it again, like almost like you put the paper in twice and printed it.
That is so
and it was
funny.
a brand new package of paper. So the way that you want to, like, the openness and level that you're ready for is how it will come about.
Yeah.
God's never going to overwhelm you.
No,
right?
No.
And so he's going to meet you where you're at because he is good.
Yeah.
And you don't have to walk around in fear going, is he going to send something new that I'm not ready for?
Right.
Like, there are times where he stretches you, but it's not to freak you out, to scare you, whatever. There is like those times of
Yeah.
stretching, because there were
Yeah.
times that I'm like, I don't know, I don't know about this, but like it was still so gentle. And he's like,
Yeah.
and if it's too much and you're like, whoa, he's like, all right, we'll
Yeah.
rein it in. Like,
Yeah.
And that's the way
He
you
knows you.
and that's even the way you know between if you're like doing, if it's the system of darkness or the kingdom of light,
I was
because the
gonna say that,
kingdom
yeah.
of light will never is drawn to invitation and only
Yeah.
does things from invitation. So if you invite that, the system of darkness will try to force itself on you and make you fear and like come at you. It'll try to impose itself on you and like scare the shit out of you, you know? And so like, you know, even which one it is by the way it makes you feel
Mhm.
and the way that it operates with you. And you can choose, you can just be like, okay, I want to like Holy Spirit or Jesus, I want to experience this with you.
Mhm.
You get to decide which one you partner with, right? Because your free will is needed in order for any of them to work. They just operate in different ways. And so you get to decide
Mhm.
which one you partner with. And I mean, for me, I pick the kingdom of light every time because it's way super cool experience and it never imposes itself on you. It never like manipulates you or like tries to force itself on you. And I'd rather have that experience, you know?
Mhm.
it's going to be a much more pleasant experience all the way around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think, is that all
I think
we've shared
so.
a lot on this?
I know.
Guys, this was good. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. Again, if you haven't caught the last episode where we talked about being lost, go catch that one too. It's
Yeah.
also really good. And catch them all. Oh, they're all good.
Yeah,
Let's
they
be
Like
are.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
Gotta catch them all.
But yeah, make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms as the Butterchurn Girls. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, either way, as Baptists That Amish Chick. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
See ya.
Bye, guys.